You're listening to Under the Shell Podcast. After all these years, still the best in America.
Welcome to Under the Shell, presented by Inside the Black and Gold. I'm Brendan YSL.
Sam Jane, Late Night Recording Edition.
And Michael House.
And let's get into it. Our guy, Brendan's got the BAL sweatshirt from our time in Africa. We're bringing on a guy from Africa, at least our trip there. I don't know if he's from there. Mr. Alex Squadron to talk about Maryland basketball season and the upcoming Big Ten tournament. Squad, take it away.
All right, we are pleased to be joined by our good friend and Hoops HQ writer, Alex Squadron. Alex, thanks for hopping on.
Appreciate you guys having me.
We haven't talked to you in about a year. Pretty much this time last year, we chatted with you to talk about the upcoming March Madness tournament. Maryland, obviously, in a very different position this time last year. But I want to talk about what you've been up to. You've written a lot of stories. What is your favorite story you've been able to cover, a favorite thing you've been able to do in terms of college basketball in the past year?
Oh, man. Yeah, well, definitely very different a year ago when we were talking about Maryland and I was on here. And I think I was predicting them to potentially be a sleeper Final Four team. It's been an obviously incredible year for college basketball. I think just the level of talent this season, it's up there with any season in college basketball history. So that's been really fun to cover. Done a bunch of stories. I kind of cover the game nationally. Obviously, I'm based in New York, so a lot of Big East. But done a bunch of big stories. I guess to keep it in the Big Ten, I did a story on Yaxel Lendenborg, who's was a National Player of the Year contender for Michigan, transfer from UAB, has this incredible story. Guy basically didn't play basketball until he got to college, 11 games of high school basketball, and obviously worked his way up from junior college level to UAB to now star of arguably the best team in the country. So talking to him about that journey was incredible, and just a really good kid who, obviously is a huge inspiration. I've done a bunch of kind of features on some of the big players and then kind of covering the day-to-day, news stuff that happens. A lot has been going on, as I'm sure you guys know, in the college basketball world with just eligibility cases and, just this incredible freshman class and, covering all of that, and then, a couple kind of big features as well. So it's been great.
I know you worked on some stories kind of about some of that eligibility stuff. Where do you see that going in the next couple of years for college basketball? I know there was the whole Charles Bediako thing. What do you think is going to end up happening?
Yeah, it's tough to kind of know. I mean, it is obviously just complete chaos at the moment. The NCAA is really lobbying for some help, federal legislation, some help from Congress to really create some rules, because the big issue is that the NCAA's kind of ability to enforce its rules has been brought into question. These court cases, I mean, Bediako obviously didn't win and he was ruled ineligible, but that doesn't mean that another court, another judge might rule differently. So I don't think you've seen the last of kind of these kind of eligibility lawsuits and cases, and it'll probably continue to kind of spiral a little bit into chaos until there's some sort of, either assistance from Congress or just a better way for there to kind of restore order, because it's hard to blame the players for trying to become eligible if they have an opportunity to sign these massive NIL or rev share contracts that are significantly more than they would make in other places. I mean, it's tough to knock them for trying. I mean, who wouldn't try to sign that big contract and to play college basketball? So I don't think we've seen kind of the end of it with the Bediako case, but hopefully there's at least some movement towards, all right, we need to get this under control and kind of restore some order to whatever's going on right now.
I know you cover the game, but from your personal perspective, what do you think would be the right answer to this issue?
I mean, it's tough to say. I think that there are so many different layers to it. Look, the thing is, college basketball has completely changed. The landscape has completely changed with NIL and with rev share and these contracts. Obviously, we're entering sort of a new model with rev share, and I think that will change things probably for the better a little bit in terms of how chaotic NIL was. And obviously there was sort of no parameters there in terms of teams just collecting as much money as they possibly can, and then offering out contracts, kind of as NIL contracts, but really they're just contracts. It's just money that collectives have, organized and fundraised for. So I think that with rev share and this new model, we're at least entering there are a little bit more parameters. And I think that, we need to get to a place where there are just clear eligibility rules, clear transfer rules, and in terms of contracts and things of that nature, clear guidelines there, because what we've had is essentially just the wild, wild west for a couple of years now with NIL. So, I think just clear rules in terms of some of these, bigger issues that we've been seeing. That's kind of the future, but I think that that's a way easier said than done, and that's why I think that they're really lobbying for some help from Congress.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think not necessarily specifically, but some of the things you just outlined with NIL, with the transfer portal, is a big reason why this Maryland team looks so different than the team last year. Obviously, Kevin Willard leaves, Buzz Williams comes in. Can you kind of break down the three teams that were involved in there and how those teams have seasons have played out? Obviously, you have Maryland, who did not have a very good season. Kevin Willard goes to Villanova. They have a pretty good season. And then on the other side, Buzz Williams leaves Texas A&M. They have a pretty good season. All that, like you just said, would not have happened, or it would have been very unlikely would have happened, let's say, 15 years ago. Kevin Willard probably would have stayed at Maryland if it wasn't for NIL and the transfer portal, because the landscape was so different. He obviously left to go to a school where he could have more rev share. At least that was part of the deal for him. Can you kind of break down what kind of went wrong and went right for those three teams this season?
Well, I think it's a really clear example of, with the transfer portal, you're just rolling the dice. And especially when you're taking over a program when the portal's been open for, weeks before you get there, and you're not able to sort of understand the situation, assess your roster. Some of these coaches were going through the NCAA tournament. They're not focused on the portal, and certainly not focused on the portal and the situation at a school that they're not even at. So I think Buzz spoke about this and kind of just how difficult it was scrambling to put together a roster, not really knowing the situation at Maryland, accepting the job late, and then just kind of not feeling like he hit in terms of the players that he brought in, and not having a great grasp of the situation. And that's sort of what can happen. Now, on the flip side, I talked to Bucky McMillan, who's now the coach at Texas A&M. He told me kind of the same thing. It was an absolute scramble trying to put this roster together. And he just hit. I mean, a lot of these guys were perfect fits for his system. He has a very unique kind of offense called Bucky Wall, where they just push the pace, shoot a lot of threes. And obviously he was recruiting, and scouting for that, but he also didn't have a pick of kind of endless options, because a lot of the top guys were already gone. So he really had to kind of settle is not the right word, but he had to, move down to sort of the list until he found guys that fit his system. And I think they obviously did a great job in terms of bringing the right people in, and it's just clicked. And they far exceeded, most people's expectations in terms of where they finished in the SEC. And I think similar situation at Villanova with Willard going in there. Obviously, he got some late adds to that team that have been major difference makers. And Willard's obviously a really great coach as well, and has familiarity with the Big East. So I'm sure that helped too. But it's a really good example of the transfer portal. Sometimes you hit a home run, and sometimes it's just these guys don't fit at all, and it just clashes. And what we've seen is that that's not it's not the most expensive rosters are the ones that perform the best. Often the most expensive are the most disappointing. So it really comes down to fit. Did you bring in the right guys? And I think that it takes coaches, even really good coaches like Buzz, some time to just get a feel for that, especially at a new school. What do I need to compete in the Big Ten? What kind of players should I be recruiting? What's kind of my situation here in terms of resources? How do we sort of build the perfect roster for this specific situation? And it just sometimes takes good coaches some time to get accustomed to that. So I don't think, obviously this has been a rough year, but hopefully the future's a lot brighter.
Yeah, I think at least from like the perspective we've heard from Maryland fans is like, Maryland got a late start to transfer portal, but obviously Texas A&M got an even later start. People were like, come on, Texas A&M had a pretty solid season. They put out that kind of troll graphic where they were like projected 13th, finished 4.
Yes.
Whatever you want to make about that. Hey, they still finished 4th in the SEC in a year they were not supposed to be very good. Sure, they overperformed expectations, but I think from the Maryland fan perspective, it's like, they got a later start and they did significantly better than this team. I think, as you said, unless you're kind of one of those blue blood teams, you don't really know what you're going to get year in and year out, just because there's going to be so much turnover each year in the transfer portal. If a player is not in love with one thing about the school, they're probably going to pick up their stuff and leave. I want to ask what you think of what you think this means for Buzz Williams, and if he can rebound and have a successful season or many successful seasons at Maryland going forward.
I do think so. I mean, look, obviously the guy's a established, experienced coach who knows what he's doing. And I think he spoke very openly earlier this week about, I was coaching the SEC. I wasn't coaching the Big Ten. This is different. The type of player you want to recruit, just everything about sort of the situation he's in is different from the one he was in last season. And again, accepting the job, while kind of the offseason is unfolding or has already unfolded, you're starting behind. So it feels like more of a surprise, I would say, that Bucky and Texas A&M just had as good a season as they did, and more kind of reasonable, I guess, or expected that Maryland might, flounder given the situation. So Buzz kind of said, look, we've now, we had a situation where we were coming in and racing to try to put together this team. And it's basically been the opposite, kind of preparing for the upcoming off season, in that since I got here, I've been scouting, I've been recruiting, we've been figuring out, what we need and who are the best fits to make this program thrive. So I feel like there is certainly hope for the future. Obviously, a school like Maryland has a proud history, and, and as recent as 2 years ago was in the Sweet 16. So there's obviously tons of potential there. I just think it sometimes takes a little bit of time, especially given what the new landscape looks like in terms of the intense turnover and, all the changes that are kind of happening day to day, it seems like, in the college basketball world. So I think there definitely is hope for the future.
Before we get back to the show, here's a quick word from our sponsor. The Catalyst to the Game is brought to you by Catalyst Hot Dogs. Catalyst brought the Jersey Dog to the DMV, featuring premium dry-aged Black Angus all-beef hot dogs made in Maryland, served with handmade toppings, including hot onions, relish, and their signature Texas chili sauce. And don't miss their original garlic knot dogs. Catalyst always offers vegan dogs as well as gluten-free buns. Shout out gluten-free buns, because Catalyst has food for everyone. Find them in CQ Stadium in Section 14 and the Xfinity Center in Section 210. Tell the people a hot dog is a sandwich. All right, now here is more Under the Shell. Yeah, no, you broke it down. It's definitely a little ridiculous. I know Buzz has talked about it a little bit, but are you able to explain from your perspective kind of the difference in recruiting from an SEC team to maybe a Big Ten team, and why that is?
I think, look, it just depends on the kind of style of play. Like, for example, the Big East is known to be extremely physical, guys that thrive in that conference. Look at Zuby Ejiofor, who's going to be the Big East Player of the Year 2 times in a row. This guy is like a physical, just dominates the paint type of player. And you can see the kind of guys who kind of control and dominate the SEC. And the SEC Player of the Year is Darius Acuff, fast-paced, electrifying guard, really good scorer, really good playmaker. Obviously there are different styles that you're going to see, but like in the SEC, you might need a guard who can contend with a guy like an Acuff. In the Big East, you need a big who is physical enough to handle guys like Zuby Ejiofor. So, I mean, those are obviously small examples of small sample size in terms of like all of these teams are going to have slightly different styles. But I think in the Big Ten, look at some of these teams that have thrived. Michigan is massive. I mean, they have incredible size, arguably the best front court in the nation with Florida. to contend with a team like that, like you need size. Like you can't not have size. And obviously Maryland had some injuries that didn't help on that front. But like that's something that, you go up against this thing every day, throughout a season, you start to realize, okay, I need more physicality, more size. Look at teams like Michigan State who have thrived, they're defensive kind of juggernauts. So I just think like stylistically, there are, kind of brands of basketball that are different among the conferences. And sometimes you hear about it and you kind of know about it, but it takes a season to kind of get a feel for it. So I think when he's speaking about that, he's speaking about like just getting used to what kind of players and what kind of the style is of the Big Ten specifically compared to, SEC.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the national landscape. Let's talk first about the Big Ten. I think right now probably projected to have somewhere between 8 and 10 teams make the NCAA tournament, mostly depending on how conference tournament week shapes out. Do you think this could be the year the Big Ten finally wins a national championship after so many years?
Yeah, I think it's been since like 2000. And this has got to be, as kind of hopeful as you can be heading into this, March Madness stretch, given how good Michigan is. I literally just, right before we started recording, Duke, who's obviously the kind of favorite and likely to be the number 1 seed, just found out that Caleb Foster is at least out until the Final Four, who's their starting guard. So that opens the door a lot to Michigan probably entering the NCAA tournament, assuming that they win the Big Ten tournament, which I think a lot of people expect, as kind of the favorite to win it all. So Michigan, being sort of, I think that they've separated themselves from not only the rest of the Big Ten, but from most of the teams around the country. So I think that gives the Big Ten a tremendous chance. And then you've got all of these teams who are certainly like Final Four contenders and kind of in the mix, who, if they get hot, could end up in Indianapolis. Like I love Illinois has the number 1 offense in the country. They obviously need to get better defensively. And, they're very reliant on a freshman who's tremendous, but, you kind of never know with these guys when you get into March. So Illinois, Nebraska's been outstanding. Michigan State with Izzo is always going to be a contender. Purdue has been like very disappointing, but again, like this is a team that entered the season as like the number 1 team on a lot of top 25s, and has arguably the best point guard in the country in Braden Smith, and a really good coach, Matt Painter, and just like tons of experience across the board. I think everybody kind of feels like they might figure it out and start clicking at the right moment. So do I think they wouldn't be right now my choice? I wouldn't choose a Big Ten team to win it all. So I guess I can't say that I like predict that they will, but this is as good a chance as they'll have, I feel like, with just how dominant Michigan is, and then this kind of grouping of teams behind Michigan that, if they get hot, could certainly go on a run. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think Wisconsin will be a team that, just because of some of the upsets they've pulled off this year, will be a team that a lot of people probably project to their Final Four, Elite Eight.
Totally. Yeah, they had 3 road wins against they beat Michigan, they beat Purdue, they beat Illinois. They have definitely the formula with really good guards, really good shooting, and they're kind of, making strides defensively. So I think, that's another good, they'll definitely be a sleeper team, I feel like, to make it.
Absolutely. Well, who actually is your pick to win it all?
Well, I was like kind of fully in on Duke, and then all these injuries have brought that into question. They just, to me, look like clearly the most dominant team over the past couple months. I mean, obviously playing in the ACC, which isn't quite as strong, but they've been just dismantling teams, and then had that, win against Michigan on a neutral court. I think right now, if I had to choose, which I'm going to have to in about a week, I think I would lean Florida. I think just how dominant this team has been in the SEC. I mean, they've been destroying teams. They've won 10 in a row, I think by an average of like 20 points. To me, the best front court with Ruben Shinyelu, who's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. obviously Thomas Houck and Alex Condon as well. And their guards are starting to figure it out, get more comfortable. I mean, people were really down on this team during non-conference because they lost 4 games. They lost to Arizona. They lost to UConn. They lost to Duke. These are close losses. And again, they had these 2 guards who are still getting kind of into the flow of things. And then the SEC, who I think Hoops HQ is projecting to have the most bids, Florida dominated. I mean, they were, teams like Arkansas, who are sleeper picks to go to the Final Four, they beat by 34. So they're just in a good rhythm. It has the feel to me of like kind of last year where like they started to get in good flow heading into this time. I mean, obviously we're recording before the SEC tournament tips off, and now they're going to lose in like the second round because I said all this.
Exactly.
But I just think that they have, to me, like in March, what you need is like great defense and really good rebounding, because like you're going to have games where shots aren't falling. So do you have kind of the, that formula of like, we are a lockdown team, we control the glass, they're the best rebounding team in the country, they have the best rebounder in the country, the best enforcer, and their defense is phenomenal. And then you throw in like they have guys who can shoot and who are starting to get into a good groove. I like Florida to repeat.
I think that's very fair. They also have some guys who have been there last year, which I think is obviously super helpful.
Totally, yeah, all those front court players. Yeah, I mean, I just know that I shouldn't have said that because this is just this is going to go downhill now quickly. But
they're going to lose in the first round of the SEC tournament, and then
we're going to get upset.
Get upset.
All off the one line,
and then I'll clip it and put it on social. Yeah. Away from the national title contenders, are there any mid-major teams you're looking at that could go on a run? Obviously, conference tournaments haven't totally wrapped up yet, or even started for some of them, but any of those teams you think people should have their eye on?
I mean, there's a bunch, I guess, from like I wouldn't call them a major sleeper because, they've been ranked in the top 25, but St. Louis has been awesome. And they've kind of fallen off, last few weeks. I think they had 3 losses, and I don't even think that they were like a big favorite heading into the A10 tournament. But they won the A10. They're the best 3-point shooting team in the country by percentage. To me, like just an incredible kind of centerpiece in Robbie Avila, who's like unselfish, perfect for their style of play. Josh Schertz is as good a coach as any. So I just think they have a lot of the pieces to be able to go on a run. I mean, if you can shoot the ball that well, have a really good superstar, they just like play with tremendous chemistry and it really seems to fit really well. One of those teams where they hit a home run in the portal, and just like everyone's bought into their roles and it's just kind of clicked. I could definitely see them getting hot and going on a run, for like a bigger sleeper. Let's see. I mean, High Point is, again, going to be in, and they're, it's a similar formula. They average 90 points a game. They shoot a bunch of threes. Just kind of this high octane team that like you can see teams like that just kind of gaining momentum and like everybody getting behind them. You just kind of can picture it. And they dominated. So like they've 15-1 in conference play, won the conference tournament. So like they're certainly have momentum on their side and are not going to be scared of anybody. And so teams like that, where they just have that ability to get hot, those are the teams that tend to potentially win a couple games and surprise some people.
Yeah, it kind of reminds you of that Oakland team from a couple years ago.
I saw that.
I want to ask you this
comparison.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I think one of the bigger questions, and obviously the conference tournaments will decide this, but are you buying the hype from Miami, Ohio? If they do not win their conference tournament, do you think they should get into the NCAA tournament? Obviously, undefeated season. What else are they supposed to do? It's kind of what we saw in college football a couple years ago with Florida State. What do you think?
I mean, I think they should be a lock to make the NCAA tournament. I think they're going to, regardless of what happens, which is good. I mean, it just, even the optics of just like to go 31-0 and not make the NCAA tournament because you got upset in the conference tournament. That'd be like, what are we doing here? To have that season, to not be able to see them in the big dance would just be, to me, a major disappointment. So I think they're in, and I think they're good. I just don't think that they're as good as probably most people expect. I mean, they're obviously going to be everybody's pick to upset, some teams in the NCAA tournament, given what they've done. And they certainly, they know how to win. A lot of these wins have come in overtime, one possession games. There's something to be said for like they figured out a way. I mean, every single time they figure out a way to win. But my fear is that when you get to the NCAA tournament, they might not be in those positions, given their first round opponent, and the magical season could come to an end. But they deserve all the credit in the world for what they've accomplished, and I feel very confident that that'll be rewarded, and they'll get to the big dance, which is great. I mean, everybody wants to see that. So hopefully I'm wrong. I mean, I hope that they surprise some people. That's why we love March Madness. But if I were to kind of, when I'm filling out my bracket, a lot of it is matchup based, but I don't really imagine picking them to go very far.
Yeah, definitely a super fun story. I think there's a chance they lose to UMass on Thursday, but
I mean, look, they're 31-0, and they entered their conference tournament not as the favorite. So,
which is ridiculous. Yeah,
to tell you everything you need to know about what people think. There's been a lot of questions about their kind of scheduling, and I know Coach Travis Steele has talked a lot about like not being able to get the matchups that he wanted to build a resume. Whatever your opinion's kind of on that, they're 31-0. Like, they've beaten everybody. So that deserves to be rewarded. And, even if they're not, a true 31-0 team in terms of talent wise, it's like basically impossible to go 31-0. So it's pretty incredible.
Agreed. Good teams win games. Well, Alex, thanks for joining us. To those of you out there, check out all of his work at Hoops HQ and some of his books as well. So, Alex, thanks for hopping on, and we'll look forward to see how your predictions end up panning out here.
Definitely don't hold me to that. I appreciate you having me, man. Good seeing you.
Likewise. Peace.
Later.
Well, by the time this is released, Maryland will have probably lost in the Big Ten tournament, if I had to imagine, which would conclude Buzz Williams' first season with the Terps. Guys, we're recording this before the game on Tuesday. They're set to play in the first round matchup. Crazy that the Big Ten now has a first round game on a Tuesday. Like it used to start on a Wednesday. They play Oregon. I would not expect that to go Maryland's way. I think Oregon has more talent than them. Nate Biddle, one of the better bigs in the country, or in the Big Ten, I should say. Jackson Sheffield, also pretty solid. This has been a just kind of disaster season for Maryland. They showed some fight down the stretch, but I think that when you look at this season, it's nothing better than a D in my book. I think overall you probably have to give it an F. So it was really good to hear Squad's perspective on it. Mike, Brendan, we've kind of talked ad nauseum about what this first season has meant for Buzz, but I think as we head into the off season, the big overall question, to me at least, is, how indicative is this season to you on what the future of Buzz Williams' tenure could mean, right? Like, how much do you weigh this season into account when you're thinking about what a Buzz program could look like?
Well, I think kind of like what I said last week, it's just hard to tell because, again, this is an incomplete roster that the Terps have been playing with all season long. I think next year is going to be the season where you can say, all right, this tenure is going well, this tenure is going bad. And that's going to be the real test for Buzz Williams when he has that roster with the top recruits, with Pharrell Payne, who seemingly is going to be coming back. You got to keep Andre Mills. At this point, we've seen it this last stretch of the season, especially against Illinois, where it seemed like he was the only guy who could really score that game. You've got to keep Andre Mills. Hopefully, Darius Adams step up. I actually didn't think he looked terrible against Illinois. That being said, he could look awful in this Big Ten game. It's just hard to say. It's definitely disappointing to see the way that it's turned out for Buzz in year one in College Park, but at the same time, there's still so much optimism for next year, and there's flashes of what some of these pieces could be, to the point of I don't want to just push the panic button full on right now. Let's wait it out another season.
No, I think that's super fair. We knew going into the season, no matter what really happened, even if they were a tournament team, it's still going to be such a weird year coming off the Kevin Willard drama, the Crab Five, and coming off of a complete roster overhaul. It would have been very impressive if Buzz Williams had been able to make the tournament. I think preseason, we thought, there was a shot. It wasn't a really, really good shot, but we kind of like, if this team lives up to the expectations, everybody fulfills their roles, they're probably a bubble team. I think a bubble team would be fair. But obviously that never materialized. I think to answer your question, Sam, going forward, I think there's two things, and I think they kind of go together. I think fans are going to be hesitant to buy back in, kind of like we saw last year. It took people way too long into the season to figure out, this Maryland team is pretty dang good because of the year they had previously when they stunk. And I think part of that it has to do with the year, but I think also has to do with some of Buzz Williams' antics that we saw this year, where it's like, you can do all that stuff if you're winning, but if you're not winning games, it makes it really hard for fans. I think especially Maryland fans, who are always such fair weather fans, to just, love a program and love a team that much.
Cheap shot to the Terps faithful there, calling them fair weathered fans.
Would you disagree? Have you been to a football game this year? I mean, I don't really do blame them at all. They won Maryland football basketball won a combined 5 Big Ten games. Like, why are you can't really give that much reason on the field to support it.
They were fair weathered. Like, I feel like the crowds were still decent at Xfinity down the stretch.
They want to get a free T-shirt and then leave in the second half.
Okay, I mean, well,
the Gen Pop for Illinois was a game. I mean, Illinois was a good game. Maryland had a very legitimate chance to win the game, and fans could have stormed the court. I mean, I'm not saying it was all bad. I'm not saying Maryland looked like the BC.
Yeah, if they won on senior day, the fans would have stormed the court, is what you're saying?
Definitely. They were preparing for it. I'm guarantee it would have happened. But
oh my God, that would have been so lame.
Call it what you want. It would have happened. But regardless, would it have mattered? No, it moves Maryland from not in the tournament to not in the tournament, and it moves Illinois maybe 0.01%. It wouldn't have mattered at all. That game was pretty irrelevant. But I think my point was people haven't had much to cheer for around Maryland, especially in the two main sports. I mean, I do want to look a little bit back at the roster, including the games that Payne played. I mean, they only really had the roster they thought they were going to have healthy for maybe a game this year. Really a half. It was the Michigan game. That first half of the Michigan game was the only time they had really a complete. Georgetown. Solomon Washington was out.
Okay, fair. Yep.
But with the first half of the Michigan game, they looked pretty darn good. Would they have looked that good the whole year? No.
Washington play in the first half of the Marquette game, or no? He was out still? Right?
He was still out. I'm pretty sure he was still out.
I mean, this is proving your point.
George Turkson wasn't healthy till the Michigan. They didn't have a full set roster. Whatever. If you took
George Turkson is the big difference here this season.
Yeah, like here's
my point. Let me finish this. I'm just saying they looked at one half. They didn't have their team healthy. If you took the average of the top 8 scorers from this year, including Payne, they would have scored 78.7 points per game, and still because of their defense, they would have lost a ton of games. Like even this team. My point was even this team at full strength, and obviously if everybody had played at the same time, they wouldn't have had all the shots and all the possessions and everything to go around. The top 8 combining for 78.7 a game. With the defense this team had, they would have still lost a ton of games.
All right, so
that was my only point.
Since we are, you go, Sam. You got it.
No, I was just gonna say let's cycle it over to the off season. Do a little off season primer. Portal opens, guys. It's not that far away. March 24th.
Being a bad team is so helpful. Being a bad team is so helpful for the portal. I hate to be that guy.
Yeah. Actually,
think about when Maryland started in the portal last year. Like they were so behind the 8 ball.
Hand-up accountability, that's on me. It's April 7th. I was looking at last year was March 24th.
Did they change it since last year?
Yeah. Still, though,
brutal.
I agree, Brendan. They're going to get time to scout, though. Like, you're going to get time. You kind of have an idea of what guys will be in the portal and what won't. So that opens April 7th. Mike, we've talked about it. Priority number 1 and 2, I think, for the current roster is Andre Mills and Darius Adams. You got to try to bring those two back. And then from there, right, you have the number 6 ranked recruiting class, according to 247, the 3rd in the Big Ten. Baba obviously figures to play a huge role in next year's squad. Likely your starting 4-man. Caden House, really good combo guard. I expect him to slot in as kind of a backup role. So then in the portal, right, what do you need? I would imagine that this team is going to see a ton of turnover, right? Like I don't think there's going to be a lot of guys coming back. So you probably want to get a veteran guard, which are relatively easy to come by in the portal. I mean, Michigan,
Rodney Rice.
Yeah, Maryland snagged Diggy Coit out of the portal last year. A wing that could shoot, I think, is critical, right? Because you have Mills who can fill it up. Baba is like an unproven shooter. I mean, he can, but he's not exactly like a knockdown guy. And Payne is a non-shooter. You're figuring Payne comes back. So you need a really high-level shooter because Darius Adams is abysmal from three. And so you essentially have three non-shooters in your lineup already. So I think you need a veteran guard. You need a really high-level wing shooter. And then you need depth, right? They need to build out the back of the roster with legitimate backups. This team, the biggest problem was they were playing too many guys who weren't Division I players or at least Big Ten players, right? Like Del Pino, cute story. Like
Colin Metcalf starting. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I mean, Colin Metcalf is like perfect example. He's starting and he's playing way out of his depth, essentially. Like
I think he averaged a point a game this year.
Yeah, he showed some decent like minutes, but it's you got to get someone who's like can fulfill that role. So they need to build up depth. I think they need at least 2 starting level players from the portal. And from there, you got to build out a rotation with some more guys. So it's a huge priority for Buzz.
Yeah. I mean, how deep of a rotation do you need, though? I mean, we saw with last year's squad, they really only had, 3 guys off the bench, Kapare, DHS,
Jay Young. Yeah, and to be fair, their bench is the reason they didn't make it past the Sweet 16.
Yeah, that's
100%, Mike. I think you're right, though. Like, you probably need 8 to 9 guys you feel confident about. But I'm just talking, like, you need to backfill the roster with a guy like Colin Metcalf, who can be, like, your 15th man or 12th man instead of having to play starting level minutes.
Right.
Because if you get 3 starter types from the portal, then you have Adams, Mills, the 3 transfers, Baba, House. That's 7. Yeah. And then you get 1 or 2 depth guys that you hope hit. That's 8 or 9. That's a solid rotation.
Agreed.
If they keep Miles Rice and Isaiah Watts, I think those are 2 guys that would be great off the bench. If you just have them as bench pieces.
I think both.
You don't know if I agree with that.
You don't know?
A, I don't think I would want to bring them back, and B, I doubt they're going to come back. So
guys love Buzz. They buy into Buzz.
Guys love Buzz. I'm not so on the Sam train of these guys are all going to leave. I just don't think. I mean, Miles Rice, I don't know if we'll ever get the story on kind of what happened with him this year. Obviously didn't play most of the second half of the season. Had a lot of tough games. He looked really good in the Georgetown game, maybe with the exception of when he threw his shoe at somebody.
He's coming back. He didn't play like in the entire second half of the year.
Do you think? I mean, I don't know why that was.
I have no. There's no insight.
But this is my point. I mean, I guess that's your point. Right? That's the issue. Why didn't he even play? Was he injured? I don't really think so. I don't know.
And just today's era,
Alex Alston's coming back.
I mean, come on.
What are we talking about? It's 12:10 in the morning, and we're talking about Alex. Wait, let me make this point though about the men's basketball roster, and let's see if you think it's a wild take. I think ideally, and I mean no disrespect, I think ideally next year Andre Mills is coming off the bench. He's very good. He's a great scorer. He's a great defender. He's the type of guy that's a 6th man. In my opinion, he's a 6th man basketball player. He doesn't play as much like a starter. He plays like a 6th man.
I hear what you're saying, B. But in today's day, they're going to have to pay him to keep him, and that's going to be there. He's going to need a starting spot. Like,
that's a good point. That's actually a really good point.
Mills making this offseason, right? He's the only player on Maryland's team that you probably are willing to. Like, if Darius Adams gets offered $1 million in the portal, I'm like,
no shot. There's no shot.
No shot. Yeah,
I would say I would.
Darius Adams could be really good when he's a senior.
What's the price tag for Andre Mills right now?
I'd say like 650 to 750.
I was gonna say 750. Yeah.
So, like, if you're paying him that type of money, he needs to be a starter for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I think that's super fair.
This is something you got to consider. But, Brendan, I agree with the overall sentiment that Andre Mills should not be, and we've talked about this, he should not be, like, your top scorer on next year's team. If he's like...
He's a great basketball player. Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
If he's, like, your third guy as a scoring option, you're great. You're a really good team. Even if he's, like, your second scoring option, I think you could convince me that that's a tournament team. So they need him to, I think, take a scale down from his current role, but he's going to be a big part of next year's team if he stays.
Absolutely.
Should we play the game of are they back, or should we save that for next week? Or the week after that, next week spring break?
Or the week after. We have a lot of time to play this game.
I feel like we'll have a clear. I want to talk portal rumors. I want to talk who we think would be good additions. But I think we're just going to have a way clearer picture on that once the season's over.
Hey, I've heard people say this. Maryland is 12 straight wins away from winning a national championship. That's just what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I mean, people are saying, shout out Buzz.
That's
and
what.
Hey, let's cut down some nets in College Park, Buzz. Let's move on.
Speaking of wins in tournaments, I asked you guys last week over under 3.5 for women's. I think if you combine the men's postseason, they probably still don't get there. They suffered a loss to Oregon in the Big Ten tournament. Not exactly what happened last year, but it's similar to what happened last year in the sense that they went home after one game in the Big Ten tournament. And the biggest issue was it was kind of the storyline we saw and how they were losing games earlier in the year when they kind of went on that losing streak. Bellucci had 27 points. That was really where most of the offense came from. She played great, went 10 of 18 from the field. The rest struggled. Yarden Garzon, 1 of 11 from the field and 1 of 9 from 3. That type of stuff cannot happen in the NCAA tournament if they want to make it to the Sweet 16. They just cannot rely that much on one person to score. They have to have a much more balanced attack, and that ultimately is going to be their downfall. We've talked about it all year. They don't have enough depth, and they don't have enough scoring depth. But what were your guys' takeaways from that Oregon game and heading into the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, kind of like what you said. I mean, someone has to score outside of Bellucci. It's not okay to have Ozzy Mamadou be your second leading scorer and be the only other player in double figures that game. Yarden was brought in to be a scoring option on this team with all the injuries that there's been. She has to elevate her game in March, and she did not do that against Oregon. Yarden took the second most shots that game, too, only nailing 1. Like, you're not going to win games like that. The new AP poll came out today. The Terps are 17th.
Right on that board.
Looking at the poll doesn't determine everything, but Kentucky is 16th. So I believe that means that Maryland would go to Kentucky if they hosted.
It's not exactly like that, but okay. Yes. But the other thing is, like, you look at the teams that are right there. Maryland beat Kentucky.
Yeah, exactly.
But Maryland beat Kentucky with Kayleen Schmeichel. It's that whole discussion of what the heck did the committee value.
Who beat Michigan State and Minnesota on the road, and which teams also lost in their rounds of the Big Ten tournament. Michigan State and Minnesota, the two teams that were right kind of on, we talked about it, on the edge of hosting that 4 seed. This is like the tightest bracketology. Usually, if you're on the men's side, it wouldn't matter that much, right? Like the 4 versus the 5.
It doesn't matter at all.
Obviously.
It really doesn't.
Obviously a huge deal in women's hoops. I think this is probably the tightest. Like, I've seen different projections. Maryland is literally one of the last teams on that 4-5 seed line. If I had to say right now, guys, would you say they're hosting an NCAA tournament game or not?
I think it's about a 60% chance that they host. I think when you look at the numbers, Maryland is better. When you look at the tape, Maryland is worse. I think if the eye test, Maryland is a 5 seed. I think from the numbers and the net rankings and all that type of garbage, Maryland is a 4. It's kind of also one of those weird things where Maryland's been really good. And the commit, like, over the just so many years, and committee just sometimes, has a little bias. I think we see it in the college football playoff committee too. Like, it seems like Maryland, they were on the same exact line last year. It was very similar, and Maryland hosted last year when they were nearly on the outside looking in of hosting last year, and they got that 4.
They've also done South Carolina in their region like every year.
Yeah, but like that,
I know.
If you don't want to play South Carolina in the Sweet 16, then maybe be a 1 seed. Also, Sam, if you want to win an NCAA championship, you got to beat a good team. So I don't really feel too bad for them there. I think if they're a 5 seed, they're probably going to end up going to one of 3 places. I think it's really probably either West Virginia or Kentucky, maybe UNC, maybe Ole Miss. Those would be the 4 schools I think Maryland could go to. The other thing that's really weird about the 4 line is that there are so many Big Ten teams. And so that makes it really weird because you obviously can't play. A Big Ten team can't be a 4 and a 5 in the same region. So it makes a bunch of weird bracket matrix have to happen. So there's a whole lot of geometry going on there for the committee. I think there'll be a 4. Mike, what you got?
I don't think they're going to host. I would put it at 35% chance that they're going to host. I know what you're saying. The committee loves to send teams to College Park in March, but you can't bow out in the Big Ten tournament like that.
It's a
We
coin
talked
flip.
about it last
It's a coin
week.
flip.
Like, you have to win at least one game to feel comfortable hosting, and just the way they lost, the committee watching that, I find it hard to see them hosting this year.
You guys both made really good points. I'm right down the middle. I think that the key thing is the three teams that you would potentially put above Maryland: Minnesota, Michigan State, Kentucky. Maryland has beat all three of those teams, and none were at home. I think that that's probably the difference when you look at it. Essentially, this team beat these three teams. I don't think we can justify ranking them below the Wildcats, Gophers, and Spartans. I think Maryland hosts. I think they're a 4 seed. I think they're the last 4 seed. And then from there, guys, we won't record, probably be before the NCAA tournament games. We have a break next week for spring break.
Cabo.
Yes, sir. Me and Mike will be in Cabo. I'll be tuning in probably to the women's games.
Yeah.
If I had to say, do they get through the round? Maybe we'll do like an emergency clip pod of kind of their bracket.
We'll also do an emergency podcast if the Maryland men's team wins the Big Ten tournament.
Yes.
But if I had to say it right now, guys, I don't feel super confident about this team advancing. I'm not like sitting here and saying, oh my God, they're guaranteed to move on. But I also, if I was a betting man, which I am, I would put money on Maryland to get to the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think that Brenda is still an elite coach. I think getting out of the Big Ten will help this team a lot. I think the NCAA tournament reduces the need for how much depth you have, right? There's so many timeouts. You get a long break in between games. Like, they're only going to need to play 7 women. Like, that I think will be a huge advantage. I think this team stacks up really well to the other teams kind of right on their line. So I would pick them to get to the Sweet 16. And then if they have to play any of the 1 seeds as a 4, I think they're going to get demolished.
Yeah. They're going to get the Iowa treatment against UCLA in the women's final. That was absurd.
And I think really
yeah.
good against Michigan, and then UCLA just
it wasn't even a basketball game in the second half. Let me say this. I think that if getting Maryland women's basketball getting to the Sweet 16 really depends on their 4-5 matchup. Matchups have mattered a lot for this team all year. I think if they play West Virginia, they have the best shot of getting to the Sweet 16 because West Virginia is a very defensive team and a very low-scoring offensive team. The way they want to win games and the way they won games in that Big 12 tournament was playing very good defense. And I think the shooting of Maryland has a chance to kind of break through that. If Yarden Garzone gets going, obviously she didn't do that against Oregon. Sarah Poffenbarger, all the rest get going, they could have an impact and win against West Virginia. I think if they play any other team, I think they do not make it to the Sweet 16. That's my prediction.
All right. Other sports going on, other sports that we'll be tuning into while we're in Mexico. The Dirty Terps, now 10-5, just won the series at Troy. You guys said last week that was a must-win series for Matt Swope. Probably the most pivotal series that he's had as a coach. They lose the Friday game. They win the next 2, something that we didn't really see last year when they had adversity. They maybe run-ruled the Saturday game and then got blown out Sunday. They won both. It was looking a little hairy in the Sunday game. Maryland was down 4-1 in the 8th inning. Rylan Stockton hits a homer in the 8th, his 4th of the season. Then Ryan Costello hits his 2nd homer of the game to go ahead in the 9th. It's his 9th homer of the season. Jordan Crossland hits another one to top it off that inning. And honestly, takeaways from the weekend, pitching's not looking that bad. You know, I'm digging the bullpen. The pitching is not looking bad at all.
I'm telling you.
Friday night loss isn't even on the pitching. Maryland just couldn't score. They lost 5-2.
Lance Williams.
I'm telling you, they listened to the episode 2 weeks ago and they were pissed about the panic button conversation. So they have really stepped it into gear.
They have.
Shout out Vance Williams. 10 Ks in his outing. Really good outing.
Yeah.
Mike, I'll give credit where it's due. They came through in a big series. I'm not going to sit here and move the goalposts and say I don't think Troy is all that, and we shouldn't be celebrating, the pitching staff after holding an offense that has struggled this year to limited run production. I'm not going to move the goalposts and say that us crowning Matt Swope in a March series win is not what he was brought in to do. I'm not going to move the goalposts and say that they won 2 out of 3. They didn't even sweep.
Well, they beat Delaware in the midweek too. That's 3 of 4.
Yeah, I mean, huge win over the Blue Hens.
Sam, can't you give the Dirty Terps their flowers for once, brother?
Say, Brendan, I'm not going to move any of the goalposts. I'm going to keep them firmly planted and say that was a good series win. They needed that. I think that they showed a lot of the things that I wanted to see. I think that Mike made a good point. The bullpen was really solid. Logan Hastings did a good job in his closer role. I think that Lance Williams, Mike was selling me on him this offseason. I actually watched the highlights from his win. His stuff looked really, really good. I think it played nicely. And the offense, I think this is going to be a team that is going to have to generate contact, right? They're not the slugging team that they've been in the past. Like, this is not a team with multiple guys with 30 home run potential, I don't think. I think they're going to have to move the line more. They did that in this series. They combined, they strung together a bunch of hits, and I think that is a winning recipe for them. It'll be very interesting to see. Big Ten play opens up at the Bob this weekend.
Sure.
I'm excited to see what happens there. But obviously a huge, huge win, series win for Matt Swope and the boys. Be very interesting to watch as we move into conference play. How much of this is real and how much of it is mirage?
Mike, let me ask you this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me ask you this. Sam makes some fair points. He's always going to kind of have this take.
He says he's not going to move the goalposts while he's moving them. But go on.
I just said I wasn't going to do.
He was moving the troll posts for sure.
Yeah, the troll posts.
Mike, let me ask you this. Pretty early into March, Maryland has 12 games left in March. A Purdue series, a UCLA series, a USC series, and then midweeks against West Virginia, Virginia, and Richmond. To close out March, what would you say is a successful record?
Yeah, I mean, that's a brutal stretch there.
It's a tough stretch.
I mean, you just mentioned those midweeks. West Virginia right now is 24th in the country. UCLA is the number 1 team in the country. They're going to be having to fly out to California for that series. And then Virginia is always good. USC is also ranked.
They just moved in.
Huh?
They just moved into the rank.
Yeah.
Who, USC?
Yeah.
Yeah.
USC
is also ranked. I mean, if you're the Terps, you're just hoping to break even this stretch. I mean, looking ahead to this week with West Virginia, a 2-2 week where you win the series against Purdue, you go 10-1, maybe you lose at West Virginia. I would say that's a success. You beat Richmond, maybe you get 1 at UCLA, and then at Virginia, USC. I mean, this is a tough stretch. This is a very tough stretch. You're hoping to be over 500 by the end of it.
I think it's by far their toughest stretch of the season. I think if they go 500 or better, that would be a really good success. I think you expect them not to win the UCLA series. I think picking off a game there would be huge. But it's definitely gonna be a big stretch for them.
They hung with UCLA last year. They just didn't win those games because the bullpen was terrible.
Yeah. It'll be an interesting rest of March to watch. Mike will keep us recapped when we return after spring break. Let's talk men's lacrosse, though. They were favored by 10.5 against Delaware this weekend. They only won by 5. Bit of a weird game. Maryland went up 5-0 super early on. As I said, they were pretty fired up after that last game. And then the rest of the way, they played them pretty even. Maryland had a huge advantage in the faceoffs. They won 16 as opposed to Delaware's 8. Henry Dodge went 9 for 12. Joni Carey went 7 for 12. They dominated in faceoffs, but kind of some of the same issues. It was a win. I would have expected a more dominant win. Maryland is still ranked. They're ranked 10th in the country despite the 2-3 record. Here's the big game this weekend. They face Virginia. Virginia has not had a good start to the season. Their defense is not as strong as it has been in past years. UVA outside the top 25. I'm marking this game a must-win for Maryland lacrosse. If they don't win this game against Virginia, this is when the season could start to go pretty south. Maryland still has pretty good odds to win the Big Ten for men's lacrosse. This team is very good, but I will say, if they don't win this Virginia game, you could start to see some things unravel. A 2-4 start with a loss over a team they kind of have to beat in Virginia. It could get ugly. I expect them to win this game, but I do think it'll be close.
Yeah, they need this one for sure. Big game. Probably would be our game of the week if we were doing that this semester.
Definitely would be.
Let's move on to women's lacrosse. Don't think we have to spend a ton of time with them. 2 blowout wins against kind of inferior opponents, 16-9 over Hofstra, and then 13-6 over James Madison. Want to give a shout out. We've kind of just brushed her aside, I think, because everyone expects her to be so good. But JJ Soriano currently leads the Big Ten in saves allowed, or in saves, not saves allowed. That would be brutal.
She's playing baseball, I guess.
Yeah, she leads them in saves. They haven't given up more than 10 goals in every game but once this season. Their defense has been the catalyst for their really strong early start. So she's just been exceptional. Maryland gives up actually a lot of shots. Like, I think that they're number 1 in the Big Ten and how many shots allowed she's faced. She just has an insane save percentage. She's leads the conference in save percentages as well. Like, she is probably, I would say, the best goalie in the country and definitely the best goalie in the Big Ten. There's no question about it. So I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what she does the rest of the way. As for their upcoming slate, we're only a couple games away from Big Ten play. So the women's team, the challenges will increase here in the near future. It actually will start.
So this weekend they're at Oregon this weekend.
I said that it didn't because then right after that they play Penn. So they kind of
notably not in the Big Ten.
Yeah. So they play Oregon. Oregon's pretty mid. Penn then the week after on March 19th. Should be a 2-0 week, I would imagine. And then they won't play a ranked team until they get Johns Hopkins later in March. So relatively easy slate here over the next week or so. I would expect them to remain undefeated until a big matchup with their in-state rival.
Agreed. I will wrap up the show with a couple more notes from other sports. JJ Soriano's save percentage would be even higher if they had taken her out in some of his early games. Maryland let up a lot of silly goals down the stretch of some of his early games. Softball went 1-2 against Rutgers this weekend, returns to 500. Tolu Akinduro was the only member of the women's track team to make it to the indoor track championships. And that's all I got for my notes on other sports. Wrestling had a couple guys make the NCAA tournament. Let's do Terrific Terp, Mike, and let's get out of here. This week's Terrific Terp was one of the integral pieces of the foundation of the women's basketball programs here at UMD. Although she did not arrive until 1985, Dana Tate had a lasting legacy for the Terps. Tate grew up in Gaston County, North Carolina, and grew up surrounded by basketball. She played the game all the time in the backyard with her 12 siblings and learned the game from them. When Tate was in 7th grade, she described herself as being no taller than 4 foot 1 inch. Muggsy Bogues in her. Yeah, but despite that undersizedness, she got a spot on the junior high team, and she actually helped lead the team as she ended up growing to 2 undefeated seasons in 1980 and 1981. Then she played for Ashbrook High School and helped them advance to the state title in 83 and 84. At the time, she set her school record in all-time career points. Finally, she decided to come to College Park and was sold on the idea of the school because of the education as well as playing basketball. As a Terp, she helped lead Maryland to 3 ACC titles, winning tournament MVP in 1986, and was the first team All-ACC her senior year, helping Maryland reach a Final Four. After Maryland, she played in the American Basketball League for the New England Blizzard and the Chicago Condors. Tate is this week's Terrific Terp because of her impact for Maryland and her standout play in the ACC. Mike, get us out of here.
That was another great Terrific Terp by Brendan to cap off this episode. As always, you can check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, anywhere you find your podcasts. Johnny, tell us about this show.
You're listening to Under the Shell Podcast. After all these years, still the best in America.